Okay, let's just dive right into this hilarious and honestly kind of horrifying explainer. We are going to scientifically examine one man's delusionally romantic descent into absolute emotional and financial ruin. We're looking at a document titled I Can Fix Her, a delusional man's guide to dating red flags. Now, it's written by a guy who actually proudly calls himself Savior Complex Steve. And it serves as this incredible first-hand, unvarnished look right into the mind of someone who repeatedly, and I mean repeatedly, sets his own life on fire just to keep toxic partners warm. Here's how we're going to break this down today. First up, anatomy of a savior complex. Then, case study, Brandy's chaos, followed by the 90-day reset relapse. After that, we'll hit case study, Amber's aura, map out the red flag translation matrix, and finally, calculate the true cost of saving. We're essentially treating Steve's satirical, yet tragically sincere guidebook as a literal table of contents to track his descent from a weird core philosophy into total madness. Part 1. Anatomy of a Savior Complex. The Philosophy of Enabling. Let's start with the fundamental mindset that sets our author, Steve, on his absolute path to destruction. To really get Steve, you have to realize he does not see the world the way you or I do at all. Where we see massive danger, he sees a golden opportunity for a grand romantic gesture. He frames his total lack of boundaries as this heroic virtue. He calls it the Savior's Creed. She's not broken, the world broke her. Her exes didn't try hard enough. I am different. Love is unconditional, especially when conditions are terrible. By adopting this mindset, he just completely blinds himself to reality. He literally advises printing this out and keeping it in your wallet right next to the emergency $100 bill you're inevitably going to have to hand over. Because to Steve, trauma responses aren't red flags. Oh no, they're scars proving she's a survivor. And this perfectly captures the central tension of Steve's whole life. The huge gulf between his romanticized internal monologue, I am a hero offering unconditional love to misunderstood women, and the objective horror witnessed by his best friend, Derek. In the foreword of this very document, Derek desperately warns the reader not to take Steve's advice. Because Derek's reality? He's watched Steve pay $1,200 to bail out a woman he'd known for exactly 9 days, get a tattoo of a girl's name after 3 weeks, and adopt a guinea pig he is fiercely allergic to. Just wild stuff. Moving on to Part 2, Case Study, Brandy's Chaos, Romance in the Municipal Court. Let's look at our first case study, Brandy, and see exactly how this Savior's Creed built into a real-world disaster. Brandy is the catalyst for this whole explainer, and she is a literal whirlwind of pure chaos. Picture this. On their very first date at a Chili's, Steve is presented with a mountain of evidence that he should just run. Brandy has 3 active municipal court cases. She casually mentions that she liberated, which means stole, her ex-boyfriend's dog, Peanut. Oh, and she's been evicted 4 times. Plus, she claims to have exactly 7 exes, all of whom she diagnoses as narcissists. Now, Steve, he completely ignores these blaring sirens. He chooses to view the legal issues and the dog theft as proof that she's a passionate, luminous survivor of those 7 narcissists. He literally hands her the keys to his apartment after 2 hours. 2 hours! So fast forward just 4 weeks in, and Steve makes his first catastrophic financial commitment. Brandy needs a car, right? Because she's driving on a suspended license. So Steve takes her to a dealership called Big Tony's Auto Empire and co-signs a 72-month loan at a brutal 14% interest rate for an $18,000 bright red Dodge Charger. And yeah, within a couple of months, Brandy is making absolutely 0 payments. She's put 4,000 miles on it, and Steve is footing the entire bill, all while she complains that he's being controlling about a car. Now, obviously, this level of delusion requires a really strong echo chamber. So when Steve's therapist, Dr. Aris, points out this incredibly toxic pattern, Steve hilariously invents a 3-step guide to firing your therapist just to protect his own delusion. Step 1. Identify warning signs, like, if your therapist uses words like codependency or asks why you're attracted to chaos. Step 2, prepare an exit speech telling them they are broken by cynicism. And Step 3, leave before they respond. Do not let them use actual psychological reasoning on you. Part 3, the 90-day reset relapse, a brief window of sanity. Because, of course, things with Brandy inevitably implode. Despite Steve paying $4,400 to move Brandy into a duplex, where she very clearly entertains another man known only as Mustang Cody, they eventually break up, leading to a much-needed reset. But man, the breakup is brutal. Steve is quite literally dumped in a driveway during Brandy's eviction. She just drives off in that Dodge Charger he's paying for, leaving him sitting there with a staggering $20,000 in debt from rent, car payments, and random mystery utility bills. He is utterly, completely destroyed. Luckily, best friend Derek steps in and forces Steve into a strict 90-day healing plan. And you know what? For a while, it actually works. Between days 9 and 30, Steve starts seeing a new therapist, Dr. Patel, and starts recognizing his pattern of equating love with suffering. Days 31 to 60, the temptation phase, he hits the gym, he successfully resists text from Brandy wanting him to fix her repossessed car. He's showing genuine progress. But then, tragedy strikes on day 91, the relapse. He meets a woman named Amber at a coffee shop who happens to be reading a book on healing from narcissistic abuse. And within 2 hours, he invites this newly evicted, unemployed stranger to live in a spare room. Which brings us to part 4, case study, Amber's Aura, Trading Chaos for Crystals. Let's dive into this brand new relationship with Amber, where Steve insists to literally everyone around him that things are going to be absolutely different this time. This is where we get a peek into Steve's absurd 3 a.m. logic. He literally creates a chart to justify to himself why Amber isn't Brandy, using the most superficial differences imaginable. Hair color, blonde versus brunette, totally different. Living situation, evicted from a duplex versus evicted from a friend's place. Hey, that's a different type of eviction. Ex status. Both call their exes narcissists, but Steve thinks it's probably accurate this time. And the red flags. They both have numerous red flags, but Amber has a different numerous. It's just mental gymnastics at its finest. And the spiritual toll Amber takes quickly escalates into a massive financial and physical one. She weaponizes her trauma at every single turn. Because she claims she's extremely sensitive to death energy, she forces Steve to spend $340 on all-new vegan cookware. She rearranges his furniture at 2:30 in the morning, and when he asks her to use headphones, she claims he's suppressing her authentic self. When she decides she needs a $900 online spiritual coaching course for a tarot business that doesn't even exist yet, Steve pays for it. And of course, she completely refuses to get a triggering corporate job to help with any of the actual bills. Eventually, reality comes knocking on Steve's door. He ends up meeting Amber's ex, Trevor. And Trevor desperately tries to warn him. He explains how Amber drained his 401k, isolated him from his friends and family for 14 months, and constantly faked emergencies to avoid any accountability. So how does Steve react to this vital information? He completely rejects it. He just tells himself, oh, Trevor is just a narcissist trying to poison the well because he couldn't handle her. He preserves his own hero narrative at all costs. Let's move to part 5, the red flag translation matrix, speaking the language of ruin. We're going to see how all of this builds into Steve's ultimate realization, codified in what he calls his matrix. This is where the explainer reaches a genuinely terrifying level of self-awareness. What's truly fascinating here is that Steve actually understands exactly how he's being manipulated. He maps it out perfectly. When she says, I'll start paying rent next month, he knows it actually means, I will never pay rent, so just add it to your budget. Can you spot me $20 translates to, give me $20 that I will literally never mention again. He knows this language of ruin fluently, yet he willingly chooses to accept it because that feeling of being needed just totally overrides his common sense. Steve even catalogs these highly advanced warning signs that Amber uses. You've got the medical mystery flag, right? Where she needs a $400 holistic consultation for undiagnosed chronic Lyme disease. Then there's the creative emergency flag, where she suddenly needs a $300 camera lens for a photography business she just invented that afternoon. And the most manipulative of all, the past trauma flag. Whenever Steve asks her to do something as basic as scoop the cat litter, she claims he's policing her like her abusive ex, effectively triggering a trauma response just to dodge accountability. Finally, part 6, the true cost of saving, alienation and acceptance. We've seen the financial damage, sure, but now we really have to examine the devastating social and emotional toll of the savior complex. Because the money is just the beginning. The real cost is literally everything else. Let's put this into perspective. After just 5 months with Amber, Steve's debt has ballooned to $28,000. He has maxed out his 5th credit card. An irony of ironies, it's the exact same card he opened specifically to rebuild his credit after the Brandy disaster. All of it maxed out just to fund Amber's illusions. But to protect this delusion, Steve systematically isolates himself from everyone who actually cares about him. By month 3, his own mother stages an intervention, gently telling him he's being a doormat. Well, Amber claims she feels judged, so Steve just cuts his mom off. In month 4, Amber completely ruins a dinner with Steve's really smart, stable college friend Priya by being endlessly combative. And by month 5, after his best friends try to warn him in a group chat, Steve completely blocks Derek, Marcus, and Jay. He abandons a whole decade of friendship just to avoid hearing the truth. It all comes to a head after finally confronting Trevor's truths. Steve tests Amber by just asking her to get a part-time job anywhere, even Starbucks, just to help with the crushing bills. Well, she explodes. She locks herself in the bathroom for hours, screaming that asking her to work is destroying everything unique about her. And in that moment, Steve realizes a stark, undeniable truth. Amber would never be a partner. She would always be a dependent. But here is the craziest part. He actively chooses to stay. He stays and apologizes to her. Why? Because the alternative, being alone, is just too terrifying for him. And that really brings us to the core of this whole explainer. Steve wasn't actually saving these women. He was feeding his own desperate need to feel valuable, even if it meant being eaten alive in the process. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Have you ever been the Steve or the Derek in this situation, completely confusing being needed with being loved? So ask yourself, are you the hero in your relationship, or are you just the next link in the chain of ruin?